So just to clarify, I guess, and add some further comments to all the shit that went down the last couple of days. What happened was, and I didn't play back my last video, so I don't know, maybe I already explained this pretty clearly, but someone on Reddit started a discussion in which he posted the famous phone number 212-255-2748. With the intent of commencing a discussion about the payphone radio calls, the audio calls, which, as you probably know if you followed this channel much, the payphone radio is just a huge collection of calls that I made almost entirely from New York City payphones. I started it back in 2010 with the intent of documenting the sound of the copper landline and just the general atmosphere of a public pay telephone call. But it evolved because I loved the monochrome gray gravelly sound of the copper landline so much better than the type of phone connections we have today for the most part. But it evolved into what I guess you'd call an audio blog. At one point, I was trying to set it up so that I could make calls that would just automatically get posted to my website. And this actually worked, but it proved to be not a desirable publishing means. Because anything that relies on a public telephone network is in trouble right from the get-go. Any telephonic pursuit that relies on a working public pay telephone is in a lot of trouble right from the get-go. Anyway, someone posted to Reddit the phone number that I set up with the intent of starting a discussion about all those calls, and that's what happened, at least at first. And then what happened next was that as people started calling, they discovered a little glitch in my system. Although I've known about it for a long time, so maybe that means it's not a glitch, right? But the glitch is that only 2 incoming calls are allowed at a time, and that's not the glitch, that's by design. When only one caller is connected, they hear the audio as expected. But if somebody else calls in while that other person is in, then the audio stops, and these 2 people are talking to each other. These 2 people had no idea who they are, who each other is. Those 2 completely random strangers yakking it up in this kind of mysterious little it's like they stepped into another dimension. So word started getting around in the discussion about the payphone radio that this 6-minute bit of randomness was going on, and then all through the night people were calling in from all over the world. Hundreds and hundreds of calls, I think about over 2,000 altogether. And I guess people were getting back onto the forum to discuss the encounters that they had. So I didn't know any of this was going on until about 11 a.m. when I checked my voicemail, and I had this strange sort of cryptic voicemail from 2 people who sounded like they're like, it's as if they were calling to tell me that I didn't know about this. Did you know that, like, if 2 people call, they get connected? And I don't mean to make fun of them for that, but like I said, I've known about this for a long time. If anything, I kind of forgot about it. I just never thought anybody would find it, because I never expected to get more than one call at a time on this line, for this purpose at least. But that's what happened, and people were really excited about it. Feeling like they just found something totally random and totally unique and totally unexpected. I suppose all that's true. I don't know about unique. I mean, this sort of glitch, if you can even call it that, might exist on other systems. I don't know. So when I learned what was going on, or got some sense of what the hell was going on, I called in myself and talked to a few people. I think 4 people called, maybe 5. Everybody was nice. There was no animosity, although one guy, I mean, one of the things I always worry about in soliciting completely random communications like this is that people are going to be angry or demented or perverted, and I didn't catch any of that. But of course, I was only on the line for a little while. But when I say all that, I mean bringing just anybody from the public into an environment like this. I worry it's going to become like a YouTube comment board. Just this like horrible backwash of humanity. But that doesn't seem to be what happened here. And maybe I shouldn't be so cynical about that kind of thing. But the people I talked to were perfectly nice. One guy seemed a little miffed because he said he expected to hear the recorded content. But that's okay. But I was starting to get annoyed by the 6-minute thing, and I have the power to fix that. But let me add, though, that with the communications I got said that it's beautiful that these calls cut off after 6 minutes. And I was like, what are you talking about? The calls are supposed to go for an hour. And I thought maybe their system was fucked up, or maybe it was getting overloaded with all the calls. But no, it turns out I made a mistake in the config file. I was supposed to say... I was supposed to cut calls off after you would put in the config file 3,600 seconds, 3,600 seconds, that's an hour. But I accidentally entered 360. So calls were getting axed after 6 minutes, not 60. And I only do the 1 hour cutoff just for good manners. It's the call provider, the incoming call provider that I'm using says everything is unlimited, but as with anything unlimited, I've found that that's never really true. But the 6-minute thing, maybe that was a fortunate, happy mistake, because I think it added to the intrigue and the mystique and the sense among people that this was a glitch and a mistake. And the 6-minute thing basically was a mistake, but I think it worked out for the best because it didn't keep all these people on the line too long, and a lot fewer people got busy signals than would have otherwise, because after 2 callers are on, you get a busy signal. I think there were like over 800 busy signals yesterday. So after I fixed that 6-minute mistake and extended call time to an hour, that's when a call comes in from this woman who I ended up talking to for a good long time. I had no way of knowing who was going to call next, but I did extend the call time on the PBX or on the conference just so I'd be able to talk longer, and then I changed it back later to 6 minutes. So if our call had been cut off after 6 minutes, we would have stayed connected anyway. She had messaged me through one of the social media sites But I didn't know that. She had to direct me to that because it's one of those things where you have to know to look for it if you're getting a message from somebody you don't know. But if I hadn't extended the call time on that, we would have probably been cut off after 6 minutes, and who knows, maybe we would not be we would not be meeting up for a date tomorrow. We're supposed to meet tomorrow afternoon. She was really funny and interesting and smart and interested. She just had all kinds of questions about my stuff. She said she was social media stalking me for like the whole night. And then, so that was a great conversation, and we agreed to meet up, and I guess we're going to do that. So that, but then about 12:30 a.m., I couldn't sleep, and I figured why not just get up and call in and see who's if anybody's still calling, because I expected the calls to slow down after the novelty wore off. They're still coming in, but nowhere near as fast and furious as before. So I get onto the line about, maybe it was 12:15. And I was the only one on at first for like a minute or two. So I was listening to myself talking on the radio. And then the sound stops, the audio stops. And that's the signal that somebody else has connected, and that somebody else is in the room. So I said something like, "Hello, who's there? Who's calling?" It was her again. It was the same person I talked to earlier in the day. She was coming home from work. She's a burlesque stripper. So she was driving back from wherever she does that. And we just had a really long and sort of open, candid, frank conversations about all kinds of shit. We'll see. I'm happy to welcome a new person into my life in this manner. It's so random. It's just crazy how these things happen, or how these things can happen. This used to be a payphone, by the way. I told her I was going to give her a whole bunch of my payphone radio cards. She seemed really excited about that. But it's crazy how these things happen. I mean, I don't think I could have orchestrated something like this. I don't know if anybody could. And if they did orchestrate it, people would object to it or find it cynical or crass, perhaps. Whereas this just happened honestly. I don't really gain anything, certainly financially, from any of this. And I'm fortunate in that respect because, like I said, the phone provider that I got, this is an unlimited account. Not so long ago, that would not have been common, or that might have been impossible to find. And this could have ended up costing me a lot of money on incoming minutes, I guess. I don't know. I haven't been in the PBX thing that long, but it seems like in the past this could have ended up being a very expensive incident for me. But how do things like this happen? And I go back to the Link NYC thing, the Mr. Softy shenanigan. And I don't know how many people would remember this, but the way it started was, well, first of all, I started doing it in February, I think. And then it didn't make it to Gothamist, I don't think, until like May. But in the meantime, like, people on Twitter and Facebook and wherever were posting this stuff. They were encountering weird music blasting out of the smart city machines. But whoever those people were, they just didn't gain any traction. But it was this one guy, it was a bike courier on 3rd Avenue. It was one guy who was cruising down 3rd Avenue when he heard this crazy sounding noise blast out of one of the machines. And then he keeps riding, and then he hears it coming out of another machine. And then I don't know how many of these things he passed before he was like, this is really weird. The same noise is blasting out of all these machines in unison, all up and down 3rd Avenue. So the fact that he was moving on a bike gave him that point of view, I guess, or whatever, perspective, to realize that this wasn't just some random noise blasting out of one. It was like a coordinated attack. So not only did, I don't know anything else about this person except he's a bike courier. Maybe he's a social media genius on the side, but this dude had the wherewithal to, first of all, recognize that this was something strange, record a video of it on his phone, upload that video to Twitter, and tag Gothamist in it. And that just ignited all the connections that led to, I think they wrote 6 stories altogether at Gothamist, and it got covered in newspapers all over the world. And I have the bike guy to thank for it, I guess. And again, like, I wasn't going out there doing this so compulsively thinking that it was going to attract media attention. I just wanted to make my statement and make some little bit of impact, perhaps, about what a poorly designed piece of street furniture Link is, that it lets me do this, and do this for a long time before the company behind it could even do anything about it. Like I say, could I have, I guess if I was like a professional something trying to get that kind of attention, I could have hired a half dozen people to just go out and do what I did, just blast the loud music out of these things. But I don't know who would think to do that or why. So I don't know how things happen. There's no way to predict how connections are going to be made, how people are going to come together. Just a couple other things, and then I'll shut up about all this. With respect to the randomness of everything yesterday, where people all over the world felt like they were caught in this, I don't know, wormhole, or caught in a new dimension of telephony. It's not lost on me that there's a bit of synchronicity in all of this. When I set up the Payphone website, however many years ago now, the stated inspiration, the stated purpose was that I wanted to make these numbers available so that people could call into the phones and have random contacts and random conversations with complete strangers. And I think randomness is everything. And that inspiration floated for a long time, for years. That's what people did, and they reported in on the encounters that they had when they called a payphone at 57th Street, 5th Avenue, or wherever. And some of the stories were hilarious, some of them were weird. Over time, that focus had to change because most phones quit taking incoming calls. And today, with respect to that, it's among a certain class of phone freak, the knowledge about what payphones out there still accept incoming calls is like solid gold, because there's still a distinct mental, I don't want to call it a tick, but something ignites in a certain type of person when they think about the possibilities of calling a public telephone and getting into the head of whoever answers. So that being the original purpose of my payphone site, it's all kind of come full circle in having unwittingly hosted countless of these connections over a payphone connection. But I wasn't going to say this next thing, but it took a while for this to sink in, but among the people that had been calling in and listening, among some of them at least, there was a consensus that I am a vulnerable individual. And I don't think they're wrong, but context is everything. There is a lot of stuff I put out there that probably shouldn't be out there, but it's also old now that it doesn't matter, and I'm fine. I did have second thoughts about putting certain thoughts certain accounts, certain whatever. But I only did it after X number of years had passed. And like I said, I'm fine. Don't anybody worry about me. But context is everything, and it just depends a lot on who I'm around and who I'm with and the company I keep. Some people can make me feel like a 6-year-old being punished for something. Other people make me feel like a grown-ass man who takes responsibility for his actions. Maybe that's a backhanded way of blaming everybody else for how I handle for my own behavior. I don't know. I don't think that's it, but enough of that. Let's check on the Doomsday Payphone, because I was there earlier and I wanted to see if anybody took one of the payphone radio cards that I left there. So evidently no takers on the ad panels. The bargain basement, $75 a month for a pretty good spot, pretty high foot traffic spot. I don't know if he's ever had ads on this particular one. He had said in a film that he was in that the ads were the only thing keeping his business afloat. But I for one never saw any of his phones with ads on them. But so that one's still there, suggesting nobody has even picked up this phone handset in the last 3 days since I put it here. That one is still there. This is the one I put here earlier today. The one I put here yesterday was gone. So I don't know who grabs them like that or what happens next, but there you go.